Welcome to Lead with Clarity. This is a space for leaders who want to grow without losing themselves in the process. Each episode is a short reflection on leadership, influence, and the inner work that shapes how we show up for others. It's not hype, not noise, just clear thinking for the journey of leading well. Today's episode is entitled More Data Than Judgment, the Colin Powell Principle That Every Leader Needs. Here we go. There's a kind of paralysis that doesn't look like paralysis. It looks like diligence. Looks like one more report, one more analysis, one more round of input before the decision gets made. From the outside, it can pass for thoroughness. But from the inside, most leaders know what it really is. It's avoidance wearing a very respectable disguise. We live in an era of information abundance, which sounds like a good thing. And in some ways it is. But for leaders, it has introduced a new problem. A dangerous belief that the right decision is hiding somewhere in the next dataset. That if you just gather enough, the answer will become obvious. It won't, because that's not how judgment works. Colin Powell said it plainly when he said, "Experts often possess more data than judgment." He wasn't attacking expertise. He wasn't dismissing analysis. Powell was drawing a hard line between two things that organizations routinely confuse: knowledge and wisdom, information and discernment, the ability to gather and the ability to decide. Think about the best leaders you've worked for or alongside, the ones whose decisions you trusted. Chances are they didn't wait until the picture was perfect. They moved when they had enough. They made the call, and they owned it. Now think about the meetings you've sat through where a clear path existed. The data was sufficient, and still nothing happened. Someone wanted more research. Someone needed to socialize it further. Someone wasn't ready to commit. The data was never the issue. Judgment was. This is one of the most consistent patterns I've seen in working with senior leaders. The organizations that move with purpose are not the ones with the most information. They're the ones with leaders who have developed the capacity to act on imperfect information. That capacity is judgment, and it is learnable. Here's where leaders get tripped up. They treat judgment as something you either have or you don't, a fixed trait, an innate quality some people are born with and others aren't. It's not how Powell lived it. That is not how the most effective executives I know talk about it. The misread leads to a subtle but damaging behavior. When leaders don't trust their own judgment, they outsource the decision. They build consensus not to gain alignment, but to distribute blame. They delay not because the situation requires it, but because commitment feels risky. The data gathering becomes protective cover. So here's the reframe. Judgment is not a personality trait, it's a skill. It's developed through repetition, through making calls, living with the outcomes, and reflecting honestly on what drove the thinking. Good judgment is built in the gap between the information you have and the certainty that you want. The gap is where leadership actually happens. The expert's job is to inform. That is a real and important job, but the leader's job is to decide. And the deciding means closing the gap with something other than more data. It means bringing values, experience, pattern recognition, and clarity of purpose to bear on the question. It also requires a discipline most leaders don't practice enough. Setting decision criteria before gathering data, not after. When you establish what matters before the analysis begins, you prevent the analysis from becoming an endless search for validation. You know what you're weighing. You know when you have enough. So here's what I want you to carry into this week. Think about one decision that has been sitting on your desk longer than it should. Be honest about why. Is it truly incomplete information, or is it judgment you haven't committed to yet? If you find a decision that has been parked behind a request for more data, set a deadline. Give yourself a date by which you will decide. Then gather what you need within that window and make the call. Own it. Reflect on it afterward. That's how judgment grows. And if you lead a team, think about the culture you're building. Are you creating an environment where people wait for certainty before they move? Or are you rewarding the quality of their thinking, not just the quality of their outcomes? Because those are very different organizations. Powell's observation carries weight because it came from someone who had to decide under conditions most of us never will, with incomplete intelligence, with lives at stake, with no algorithm to tell him what was right. What he understood is that data is a resource, judgment is the capacity, And no leader, regardless of how brilliant their team or how sophisticated their systems, can outsource that capacity. Know the difference between your experts and your decision makers. And if you're the one in the seat, develop your judgment the same way you develop any other skill, through practice, reflection, and the willingness to be accountable for what you decide. More data will not make you a better leader. Better judgment will.